Hello everyone, this is Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So on Sunday, I guess you could say Monday morning, we had the displeasure of waking up to the following. Or with this one. Everyone keeps saying potentially. Israel attacked multiple sites in Syria, this one being Hama. That attack registered over 2 on the Richter scale. The first attack, I want you to listen to this one, because this one to me is more heartbreaking, if I'm being honest. Let's take a listen to this one. The reason why I think that one is more heartbreaking is because what you're hearing is that person controlling their breathing as they watch their country being torn apart. That's a human being, the human element, watching something take place and recording something take place and having their own heart breaking at watching this take place, this war-torn country. And they're in this space doing whatever they're doing, and they're seeing bombs fall out of the sky from some foreign actor destroying and attacking their country. They're controlling their breathing. It's what I do when I'm doing skydiving or bungee jumping or something like that. It's the same thing I do in my head. Keep your shit together, keep your shit together. That's what you're telling yourself, but outside of yourself, it looks as if you're controlling your breathing. You can hear the person breathing as they're watching this horrendous thing take place. This is mind-blowing that this takes place. Just to give a little bit more details on this, because this is extraordinarily problematic and dangerous. Even though this was an attack in Syria, they were killing Iranians. Meaning, Benjamin Netanyahu came out and gave this nutcase speech recently, but that's after taking this action in Syria against Iranian forces. Now you must understand, Russia and Iran has allied themselves with the Syrian government. In many cases, you can make a case that the Syrian government was about to collapse. And if it wasn't for the Russian and the Iranian governments, that it may have collapsed. They've allied themselves together. That's no different than the United States allying with Saudi Arabia, or the United States allying with anybody else. They can ally with anybody else. They're sovereign countries. They can do whatever they want. Israel took this action in order to attack Iranian installations throughout Syria, meaning the people who they were killing in this were Iranians in addition to Syrians. Now, the wild part about this is, I did this article previously where I was showing that Pompeo came out saying, yes, we killed like hundreds of Russians, a couple of hundred Russians. But this was never acknowledged before. This was never mentioned before. Because to mention it makes it real. It's one thing if it happens. It's not real until you say something about it, until the people know about it. In this case, the Iranians, something similar, made no acknowledgement of deaths in this case. Israel and some of the other papers comes out and says over 20 have been killed. So the Israeli forces have just went through Syria, killing Syrians and murdering Iranians, who is, mind you, legally aligned with Syria. The person who's not supposed to be in this picture is Israel. The person who's not supposed to be in this picture is the United States. The people who are politically aligned and legally aligned are Syria, Russia, and Syria, Russia, and Iran. This is problematic. And I'm going to try to focus just purely on this particular story, meaning the attack itself, because I have another story dealing with this coming up in another video, and I don't want these videos to go too long. I want these to be very specific to what I'm trying to talk about. They're breaking international law. And I understand that they've done this before and everything else, but they're breaking international law in a country that is, for all intents and purposes, a tinderbox. And you have multiple countries that are aligned in this World War-esque way, where people have chosen their sides. Russia, China, Syria, most likely North Korea, and Iran. And in this case, Israel, the United States. I don't necessarily know which side Turkey is going to fall on this, but of course the United Powers, or the Western Powers. This is a tinderbox. They're leading us into war. They're leading us into war. Let's take a look at the story itself, and we'll get to the tinderbox part later. Iranians killed in suspected Israeli strike in Syria. This is the Telegraph. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said 26 people were killed in the strike in Hama, and that the vast majority of the casualties were Iranians. Iranian media initially reported that 18 Iranians had been killed in the strike, but later retracted the claim. Later, the Iranian officials denied that any of their forces had been killed. All of the reports over the attack of the Iranian military base in Syria and the martyrdom of several Iranian military advisors in Syria are baseless, an Iranian official told the semi-official Tasnim news agency. The strike came 3 weeks after another suspected Israeli attack on the T4 airbase in central Syria, which Iran said left 7 of its officers dead. Iran vowed to revenge the attacks, and Israeli forces have been on high alert for potential retaliation. The strikes caused subsequent explosions so large that the European Mediterranean Seismological Center recorded tremors equivalent to 2.6 magnitude earthquake in central Syria. Breaking law. They're breaking the law, international law. If it exists at all, I would make the case it doesn't exist. But if it does exist, it is being flagrantly broken. The context is very important because we're a few weeks away from the possible collapse of the Iran nuclear agreement and the possibility that Iran will resume its nuclear program. I think this strike sends a message that Iran and Israel can strike these underground facilities. Message to Iran that Israel can strike these underground facilities, Mr. Horowitz. Now, Mr. Horowitz is a senior analyst for the Lebeck geopolitical consultancy. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, Iran's supreme leader, said Monday that the United States was trying to push Saudi Arabia into a war with Iran. Americans are trying to provoke Saudi Arabia against Tehran, he said. Their aim is to create a more regional crisis. His comments came after Mike Pompeo, the new United States Secretary of State, visited Saudi Arabia and Israel, promising to take a hard line against Iran during both stops. Long story short, Israel has attacked multiple facilities in Iran. Iran has essentially said, no Iranians have died from this. But Iran, just like when Syria said, we shot down most of those missiles, countries lie. Military leaders lie. They don't necessarily want to give out certain information, nor do they necessarily want to look weak. And for political expedience, they say certain things that they don't necessarily want to have to deal with political fallout about. So, is it easier to say nobody died as opposed to having to deal with the reality of 20 Iranians being killed in a strike, and your people looking at you and saying, what are you going to do about this? They've just killed 20 of us. These imperial forces in this other country, this terrorist regime of Israel that has an apartheid state, has just murdered 20 of us. What are we going to do? What are you, as a leader of that country, going to say? What you're going to say is, again, you can get away with being strong and wrong, but if you're weak and right, not so much. He is going to be strong. He is going to be somewhat of a hawk. He is going to vow revenge. We're going to take revenge on the infidels or whatever they say. But he has to say that. The people are not allowing him or going to allow him to say anything else. Leaders always, almost always, take a hard line. Taking a weak line is something that is not politically expedient. Usually in the country that you're in, there's always going to be someone who's going to attack you from the right on that. It's easier to say, I am defending you and protecting your interests by doing XYZ, and usually that XYZ demeans some kind of action. people often are not necessarily the most rational when their feelings are involved and when they're pissed off. He's vowing action. Now, whether you want to call this a red line or whatever else, he is vowing action. I've seen in other reports where he said the days of Israel striking Iran are over. Well, in this case, depending on who you believe, whether you believe the paper themselves that came out saying they killed 20 or 18 Iranians, whether you want to believe the Iranian media when they pull that back saying, no Iranians were killed in this, whichever one you want to believe is kind of besides the point. Israel did those strikes. Iranians probably were killed in it. I'm more inclined to believe that Iranian government just doesn't necessarily want to deal with the reality that they killed 20 and don't want to have to deal with that political fallout of that, at least not yet. While at the same token, they probably are planning some kind of revenge and plotting something. Look, this is aggression. Israel is screaming up and down that, oh my God, we're being attacked. Oh my God, we're being attacked. Oh my God, we're under threat. Oh my God, we're under threat. Oh my God, everybody's attacking us. Nobody understands us. Nobody understands us. We're in an apartheid state with nuclear weapons, but these other guys with rocks are threatening to us. Okay, I get it. I've been to the country. I've seen it. No, I don't necessarily live under rockets fire that often land in the wilderness somewhere. You're a nuclear-powered nation. And in being a nuclear-powered nation, you have billions of dollars coming in weapons and support from the United States. And you're facing people that have rocks and rockets, like these pocket rockets or whatever. Pocket rockets is strong, but you know what I mean. There's a massive imbalance between what you consider to be a conflict. And you're hoping an open-air ghetto. And those people who have those rockets have a right to be pissed off that they're in an open-air ghetto and that they're stateless and that you're continuing to take their land. You've been murdering protesters. That by itself is mind-blowing. And it breaks, again, international law. The International Criminal Court is looking at this, but again, it's probably not going to do anything because, let's be honest, it has no teeth and is somewhat of a worthless organization. And now, they've taken their time to say, we're going to attack Iranian targets. We're going to kill Iranians in Syria. Now that this chaos is here, we have the pretext that we can use to essentially get further inroads into Syria. This is a tinderbox. And I'm going to talk about the tinderbox effects coming up next. So, if you guys enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe, and of course, as always, Patreon. Thanks, guys.